So sleep paralysis occurs when you're going into rapid eye movement or dream sleep or coming out of it. So it's when you're going to sleep or coming out, or also if you're just taking a nap, or if you're a shift worker and you want to take 40 winks, that's when it usually happens. So the three aspects to sleep paralysis. The first one is obviously your body releases GABA A, GABA B and glycine and makes sure that you don't move, as if you have atonia, you don't have any muscle ability to move muscles. The second part is you can only move your eyes usually, or some people can't even open their eyelids so that their eyes are closed. The third aspect is that people sense an intruder, a sensed presence in the room that's often just outside of their ability to see, but if they feel like it's a shadow figure, or what we call the shadow man. The shadow man is about 10 feet tall usually, very slim, moves fast. Some people describe him like an insectoid, which often leads people to believe in aliens. The old hag and old woman, or children in particular, come in, kind of strangers, or kind of alien beings. That's more common in the United States. The next aspect is all your senses. You can hear things, you can feel touch, there can be smells, and also motion. That you can feel your body being lifted and twirled around, being raped, being punched, being kicked, being bitten, being thrown against the wall, or being pushed down is the most common experience. That there's something sitting on my chest pushing down. And then that someone's strangling me and they can't take a breath in. And you can't express noise, you can't use your voice.
I think I was 25. I was just after a car crash, 2 weeks after a car crash. First time it happened came out of the blue, and it didn't happen for a while later. But probably over the next 2-3 years, it might be something like, you know, once or twice a month, and then sometimes it could be, you know, 2 or 3 times a week. But that was quite unusual. I remember, like, sometimes the really terrifying ones, it might seem like they were gone for 5 minutes. It seemed like longer, but once I knew what it was probably something like 5 minutes. But I remember the first time it happened. Yeah, it was terrifying. It seemed like, you know, probably half an hour, but, you know, it could have only been a couple of minutes. The more vivid ones were, I'd feel like there was somebody in the room. I remember one particularly terrifying one. I was lying there and I was sleeping face down and I just felt something on my back. And I just felt presence in the room. Couldn't move, my eyes were open. And I felt something on top of me, and I seriously thought I was being murdered. Because I knew I had sleep paralysis. First of all, I thought it was sleep paralysis, but because it felt so real, I actually thought like somebody was going to murder me. And I was lying there anyway, saying, wake up, wake up. And next thing, an arm just grabbed me. I just remember just seeing an arm. And yeah, I actually thought I was being murdered, and it was a few minutes afterwards I realised it was sleep paralysis. And I woke up, and when I woke up I was so terrified, I had to turn all the lights on, and yeah, I was too scared to go back to sleep. I definitely think it's related to stress. For me it was. I used to work in a really stressful environment. I was head of finance in a company, and I used to work crazy hours. And, you know, intense pressure, like, you know, a lot of financial pressure, all that sort of thing. But then, definitely, I'd have more episodes. So for me, I think it was stress related, because for the last couple of years, you know, I'm back studying, I'm doing something I like, and I can't remember having an attack in the last 2 years.
So the most common symptoms would be a sense of complete abject terror, that something terrible is about to happen, that I'm going to be raped or attacked or killed or strangled, that no one will hear me, that I'm alone here, or that if people keep going through the same thing, that it's happening again, that I'm not going to go to sleep anymore. I'm going to avoid going to sleep. I'll never sleep in that room anymore. I'll never go to sleep in my grandmother's house. So people start to avoid places and start to become very protective about their sleep. Also the sense that there are paranormal people moving from another realm to get me. It could be an alien from another galaxy, it could be a ghost from my past, or somebody who attacked me in the past, or it could be a religious aspect, a demon, or a supernatural being who is generally malign. Vast majority, over 4 out of 5 experiences, they're malign. 1 in 5 or 1 in 10 would be more kind things, where people are relatives coming through with stroke or say everything will be okay.
I was lying in my bed and then my ceiling had collapsed on top of me, and then there was people sitting around me, kind of Victorian style dressed, and they were all sitting around the bed talking and laughing, and I couldn't move or do anything. I felt it was evil because they were all mocking me and stuff.
I woke up but I couldn't move my body, and then I tried to open my eyes but they just kept on shutting, and as much as I tried they just wouldn't open, and then they did, and I saw someone across the room. I saw their legs from under the table, and then my body had shot up but I still couldn't move or open my eyes, and I knew what it was, so I just laid down and I just tried to go back to sleep because I'd heard all the stories about it.
In Ireland, we reckon it's probably the same as in the UK, Canada, USA. Probably, if you look at the whole population, about 8 to 10%. But if you focus in university, where people don't sleep great because they might be studying, they might be taking ecstasy, they might be taking a lot of alcohol, anything that affects the central nervous system wellness will then change the circadian rhythms and your sleep pattern. If you're worried about things, if you're a natural worrier, we know that makes it more common because you're taking a long time to go to sleep. So anything that affects your sleep will therefore affect your likelihood of having sleep paralysis. But in students, we've done 3 studies here, all about 300 to 400 students, and we found about 30% of students get it. These types of events they'll talk about, it's about spirits, about people in the past, and it might be more valued. Whereas I've talked to GPs and they'll say in their whole life as a GP, even though about 10% of the population will get sleep paralysis, that they've never heard of it. Because the Irish patients are terrified that the GP will think they're psychotic, they got schizophrenia. People who are more prone to believing unusual beliefs are also more prone to believing in different types of religions and becoming more what's called religiosity, having a high sense of their thoughts of power, and that if they pray that they will have a good impact on another person. Also in cultures and in parts of Ireland, where particularly in Wexford and some parts of Galway, the idea of the dead come to talk to you is significant in Ireland. And in those cultures, about 1 in 6 people after the death of someone that you love or someone you're frightened of, with the strong feelings for the person, they'll come back. And you'll hear of young girls saying, "Oh, Granny came to me last night and rubbed my head." Or Granny came to me last night and said something important, or my granddad who abused me came and re-abused me. So yes, it's very powerful on what your thoughts will allow you to think. But there's a thing called schizotypy, and that's a kind of person who has a loose association with thoughts, jumps around the place thinking, and doesn't necessarily look for facts to understand things, goes more by intuition. And they're more prone to believing in fairies, in different crystals having a power. And so those people, that could be good for them. It can act as a placebo and help them through different illnesses, but also it can lead them down the wrong path.
Well, it started small, every few months, and then it progressively started to increase to sometimes even 2 to 3 times a night. I remember feeling conscious, but paralyzed. And then at a pop of a second, I was in the middle of darkness. And I couldn't see anything. It was almost as if I went to a bottom of an abyss, of the abyss. And I would see myself in the third person, walking through this darkness. And every part of my body, as I reached forward and backwards, would be swallowed in black. And I couldn't see, I couldn't hear a lot. And I saw my mother, and I tried to reach for her and follow the tone of her voice. And I kept increasing my speed, and my breathing started accelerating. And eventually I panicked because I lost her in there. And then I went back to the bedroom to see myself and feeling paralyzed until the episode finished and I woke up. And then there was another episode where I woke up and I looked at the edge of my bed, and I was sitting at the edge of my bed, almost as a mirror reflection of myself. But at the same time, I knew it wasn't me. So I kept trying to wake up different ways, controlling my breathing, because I started feeling very accelerated, my heartbeat. And I would wake up and I would start trying to move, and then I would realize I was still having sleep paralysis. And this happened a few times, and I kept seeing the same image in front of me. And the entity or the person or whatever I was seeing kept provoking me with negative remarks or negative quotes, saying things to, I think, irritate me or make me feel bad. And I remember I felt such an evil presence, almost like a grin, looking at me. And she kept getting closer, and I kept trying to move out, but I couldn't because I was paralyzed. And then beside her, I saw this man who had huge teeth up to his ears, and his mouth was huge. And I remember looking at him, and his body was contorting himself, walking towards me, almost like he didn't even have a bone in his body. And I remember feeling very frightened, but trying to calm myself down, saying to myself, oh, this is nothing. The scariest thing that would happen would be his jaw falling off. And just as I had that thought, it projected into the dream, and his jaw fell down, and there was gushing and blood and rottenness coming through it, like vomit, and just a lot of horrible things. Yes, I've had history of abuse and a lot of deaths in my family. I've had car crashes as well, and I've suffered from anxiety and depression. I also don't have a lot of good sleeping patterns. I spent a good few years of my life only sleeping 4 hours, so my body wouldn't shut down. I felt that even if I fell asleep, my body wouldn't rest. And that always had me tired and startled. And at one point when my sleep paralysis was getting worse, I felt that I was too scared to even enter the bedroom and fall asleep because I didn't know what was coming for me or who was going to attack me or disturb me in my sleep. So I would only sleep to the point of exhaustion, which would be like 4 a.m., 5 a.m., sometimes even later than that, because I had to put my body through such an amount of work for it to collapse without me sleeping on my own.
I think it would make them, well, what might happen is a lot of us have sleep paralysis and don't even know. We don't realize, we just go, oh, I must be asleep, I'm just frozen, and just drift back to sleep. When you talk to a lot of people, that's fine. Now, another aspect is how stable your sense of being able to reach out for help is. If I feel like I can reach out to you or another friend in college or a colleague, I'll be able to talk about that. Immediately takes it away. Because what I noticed when I did the study here in Ireland recently, we had 1,200 people respond. It's a lot of people. And they all started talking. And when we talk, a problem shared is a problem halved. And people go, oh, I get that. And then they go, oh, I thought I was the only person in the parish who got it. That I had these really unusual thoughts, and it was a sign of mental illness. So your own illness beliefs from the past, if you've had mental illness in your family, then it might frighten you more, because you might think, oh my God, a bit like if you get a pain in your chest or down your arm, you mightn't think it's because I reached this way and stretched myself. You might think, oh, Uncle Tommy died of a heart attack, now it's going to happen to me. And then adrenaline gets released. And if you get really frightened if no one helps you, cortisol goes to the roof and you get confused. And you go into this numb state where you feel numb. So numbness and what we call dissociation is another big aspect of people who are terrified when they get it.